The dish that changed everything. When a chef's joke became a recipe for desire. The kitchen of our realist was a battlefield on Friday nights. Flames licked the edges of sauté pans, orders barked through the narrow galley, and the air hung thick with garlic, thyme, and barely concealed panic. Emily Harper moved through the chaos like a dancer who'd memorized every step, her hands precise as they plated a duo of lamb chops with rosemary jus. She was invisible here, exactly how she preferred it. "Chef, table 12 needs their entrees in 3, Marco, the head chef, shouted without looking her way. Emily nodded, already reaching for the next ticket. 26 years old, 3 years at Aurelius, and she still blended into the stainless steel backdrop. Her talent was undeniable. Even Marco grudgingly relied on her. But Emily had never wanted the spotlight. Let others chase accolades and Instagram fame. She had her knives, her recipes, and her peace. Until Cameron Brooks walked through the door. She didn't see him arrive, couldn't from her station near the back, but she felt the shift in the dining room's energy, like a sudden drop in temperature. The servers moved differently, their smiles tighter, their voices careful. When Sophie, the floor manager, burst into the kitchen with eyes wide as saucers, Emily knew something had gone terribly wrong. "Cameron Brooks is here! Table 7! He didn't make a reservation. Just appeared!" The kitchen fell silent for exactly 2 seconds. Cameron Brooks, the food critic whose reviews could shutter restaurants overnight or launch unknown chefs into stardom. He'd eviscerated a Michelin-starred establishment last month with a review so scathing the chef had publicly wept. And now he sat in their dining room, uninvited, hungry, and dangerous. Marco's face drained of color. "Get him the tasting menu. Standard. Perfect execution. No risks." But Emily's mind was elsewhere. For weeks, she'd been experimenting with a dish during her off hours, a deconstructed bouillabaisse with saffron foam, crispy squid ink tulle, and a surprise element she'd been perfecting, a honey chili oil that shouldn't work, but somehow sang. It was bold, risky, completely off menu, the kind of dish that could make or break a reputation. The kind of dish Marco would never approve. The evening crawled forward. Emily watched from the kitchen as Cameron's courses went out, each one technically flawless, utterly forgettable. She could see it in the way he barely touched the duck confit, how he dismissed the chocolate soufflé after a single bite. He looked bored. Worse, he looked like a man preparing to write something devastating. Something reckless stirred in Emily's chest. "I'm taking him something," she announced, already reaching for a clean plate. Marco spun around. "Absolutely not, Harper. You stay in your lane." But Emily was already plating her experiment, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The saffron foam crowned the delicate seafood, the tulle standing like a dark sail, the honey chili oil pooled strategically to catch the light. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. She pushed through the kitchen doors before she could second-guess herself. Cameron Brooks was exactly as his photos suggested. Sharp jawline, dark hair, slightly disheveled, and eyes that seemed to calculate the worth of everything they touched. He looked up as Emily approached, surprise flickering across his features. Critics didn't usually meet the kitchen staff, especially not mid-service. "Mr. Brooks," Emily said, her voice steadier than she felt, "I'm Emily Harper, one of the chefs here. I noticed you seemed underwhelmed. I thought you might like to try something that's not on our menu. Consider it a joke, an experiment. No pressure, no expectations." She set the plate before him, heart hammering. Cameron's eyes moved from her face to the dish, studying it with the intensity of a jeweler examining a rare gem. "A joke," he repeated, his voice low and surprisingly warm. "That's a first. Most chefs treat my visits like life-or-death examinations." "Maybe that's the problem," Emily said, surprising herself with her boldness. "Food should be a conversation, not a test." Something shifted in his expression. Amusement,
interest, something deeper she couldn't name. He lifted his fork, pierced through the foam and seafood, caught the oil just right. Emily held her breath. As he tasted, the world seemed to pause. When Cameron's eyes met hers again, they held a spark she hadn't expected. "This," he said slowly, "is not a joke. This is extraordinary."
Cameron Brooks didn't leave after finishing Emily's dish. He stayed through the end of service, nursing an espresso at table 7 while the dining room gradually emptied. Emily felt his presence like a magnetic pull, even from behind the kitchen doors. Every time she glanced through the window, he was there, typing notes on his phone, occasionally looking toward the kitchen as if waiting for something. When Marco finally dismissed the staff, Emily found herself hesitating by the back exit. Sophie appeared beside her, eyes gleaming with vicarious excitement. "He asked for you," she whispered. "Specifically, said he wanted to discuss the dish." Emily's stomach flipped. "Tell him I already left." "Too late," Sophie grinned wickedly and disappeared. Taking a breath, Emily removed her chef's coat, smoothed her hair, and walked back into the dining room. Cameron stood as she approached, a gesture that felt oddly old-fashioned and entirely disarming. "Emily Harper," he said, as if testing how her name felt in his mouth. "Sit, please, unless you're in a hurry to escape." "I should be," but found herself sliding into the chair across from him anyway. "That dish," Cameron leaned forward, his intensity palpable. "How long have you been working on it?" 3 months? Maybe 4? Emily tried to sound casual. "It started as an accident, really. I burned the first batch of tuile and had to improvise." "The best dishes often do start as accidents." His smile was slow, devastating. "But what you created wasn't luck. That balance between sweet and heat, the way the saffron doesn't overpower but enhances, that's instinct, talent." He paused. "Why are you hiding in Marco's kitchen instead of running your own?" The question struck something tender. "I'm not hiding, I'm learning." "You're wasting time." Cameron's bluntness should have offended her, but his eyes held genuine curiosity rather than judgment. With refinement, with the right presentation and backing, you could change your entire career, if you'd let someone help you. "Let me guess. You're volunteering? The great Cameron Brooks wants to be my culinary fairy godmother?" "Mentor sounds more professional." His grin turned playful. "Though, I admit, fairy godmother has a certain charm." Despite herself, Emily felt warmth spreading through her chest. "I've read your reviews, Mr. Brooks. You don't do charm, you do devastation." "Cameron," he corrected. "And maybe I'm tired of devastation. Maybe I'm looking for something worth building instead of tearing down." The air between them shifted, charged with something that had nothing to do with food. Emily should have left then, should have protected the careful boundaries she'd built around her life. Instead, she heard herself say, "One consultation, that's all. I'm not promising anything." Cameron's smile could have lit the empty restaurant. "I'll take it." Over the next 3 weeks, Cameron became a fixture at Aurelius. He came during off hours, before the dinner rush, and Emily found herself creating dishes specifically for his palate, each one a challenge, a conversation, a small revelation. They worked in the kitchen's quiet morning hours, when sunlight streamed through the high windows and the space felt like theirs alone. "Too much acid," Cameron said, tasting her deconstructed niçoise. "The lemon is fighting the vinaigrette instead of complementing it." Emily adjusted, retasted, watched his face as he sampled again. When his eyes closed in appreciation, triumph surged through her. "Better?" "Dangerously good." His voice had dropped lower, intimate. "You're learning to trust your instincts." "Or learning to trust your palate," she countered, but couldn't quite meet his eyes. The professional boundaries began blurring. Cameron's hand would linger on hers as he guided her knife technique. Emily found herself hyper-aware of his proximity, the way he smelled like expensive cologne and something uniquely him. Their conversations stretched beyond food. His difficult childhood in New York, her quiet upbringing in Michigan, the dreams they'd both been too afraid to voice. "Why food criticism?" Emily asked one morning, as they prepped ingredients side by side. Cameron's knife paused mid-chop. "I tried, failed spectacularly at culinary school, couldn't handle the pressure, the hierarchy. Turned out I was better at analyzing brilliance than creating it." Something shadowed his expression. Or maybe I was just too afraid of failing publicly. It was the first crack in his confident exterior,
and Emily felt herself drawn to the vulnerability beneath. "That's why you're so harsh in reviews. You're projecting." "Probably. Until I tasted your dish, I'd forgotten what it felt like to be surprised. To be moved by food." The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm. Emily turned back to her cutting board, heart racing. "Cameron," he said quietly, "I know. This is becoming complicated." Complicated didn't begin to cover it. Emily lay awake nights thinking about the way Cameron's eyes lit up when she nailed a flavor profile, the electricity that sparked when their fingers accidentally touched. She was falling. For his mind, his encouragement, the way he saw potential in her that she'd never dared claim. But doubt gnawed at her independence. She'd built her life on self-reliance, never heeding validation or guidance. Cameron's presence threatened everything she'd carefully constructed. Was she really talented, or was she just intoxicated by his attention? Did he see her, or just a project to shape? The questions haunted her even as their sessions grew more intimate, lingering glances, conversations that stretched until the dinner prep crew arrived, moments where the space between them felt combustible. Then, Marco discovered them. "What the hell is this?" The head chef's voice exploded through the kitchen one morning. "Harper, you're using restaurant resources for your side projects with him?" Emily's face burned. "Marco, I can explain. You're done. Both of you, out, now."
Emily's apartment was smaller than Cameron expected. A studio in Wicker Park with exposed brick, hanging copper pots, and a kitchen barely larger than a closet. She'd invited him here after Marco's explosion, needing neutral territory to process what had just happened. Now she paced the narrow space like a caged animal, anger and fear radiating off her in waves. 3 years, she said, voice tight. 3 years of perfect attendance, extra shifts, never complaining. Gone because of one morning experiment. Cameron sat on her worn couch, guilt settling heavy in his chest. "This is my fault. I pushed too hard, came too often." "No," Emily spun to face him. "I made my choices. I wanted those sessions as much as you did." She paused, vulnerability flickering across her features. "Maybe more." The admission hung between them, dangerous and thrilling. Cameron stood, crossing to her in 3 strides. "Emily, what we've been building these past weeks, it's not just about the food. You know that, right? I don't know anything anymore." But she didn't step back when he reached for her hand. "I can't tell where the mentorship ends and whatever this is begins. You talk about my potential, my talent, but Cameron, how much of that is real? How much is just you seeing a project, someone to mold into your vision?" The question cut deep because Cameron had asked himself the same thing countless times at 3 a.m., unable to sleep for thinking about her. When had admiration for her culinary instincts transformed into this consuming need to be near her, to hear her laugh, to watch her face light up when a dish succeeded, to memorize the way she bit her lower lip when concentrating? "You think I'm doing this for my ego?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "That I'm spending every morning in that kitchen, risking my professional reputation by associating with an unknown chef because I want another protege for my portfolio?" "I don't know." Emily pulled her hand away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I've never done this before. Blurred the lines between professional and personal. I don't know how to separate your faith in my cooking from whatever else is happening here." Cameron wanted to close the distance, to kiss away her doubts, but forced himself to stay still. "Then let me make it clear. Yes, you're extraordinarily talented. Yes, I believe you could have your own restaurant, your own recognition, everything you've been too afraid to reach for. But Emily," I waited until her eyes met his. "I'd feel this way even if you burned every dish you touched. This isn't about your food. It's about you." Tears gleamed in her eyes. "That's terrifying." "I know." He managed a crooked smile. "I'm terrified too. I built my entire career on detachment, on never letting anything affect me personally. Then you walked out of that kitchen with your joke of a dish and completely dismantled my defenses." Emily laughed shakily, swiping at her eyes. "We're a disaster. A beautiful disaster." Cameron dared to step closer. "Here's what I know for certain. You need to get out from under Marco's shadow. Not because of me, not because of us,
but because you deserve to be seen. Your talent deserves recognition. I don't have the capital to start a restaurant, or the connections, or the confidence, honestly, but you have me. Cameron pulled out his phone, already typing. I know a dozen investors who'd leap at the chance to back genuine talent. There's a space in Lincoln Park, small, intimate, perfect for a chef who wants to experiment. And my next review column? I'm writing about the brilliant chef Chicago doesn't know yet, the one who created a dish so extraordinary it reminded me why I fell in love with food in the first place. Emily stared at him, hope and fear warring in her expression. If I do this, if I let you help me, I need to know it's real. All of it. Not just professional admiration or sexual tension or whatever this chemical thing is between us. Real. Cameron closed the final distance, cupping her face in his hands. Emily Harper, you are the most real thing that's happened to me in a decade. And if you'll let me, I'd like to explore every complicated, terrifying, absolutely real part of this with you. Her breath hitched. The food and the feelings? All of it. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Though I reserve the right to still critique your dishes honestly. I have professional standards. Emily's laugh broke the tension. You're impossible. And you're stalling. He leaned closer, giving her time to pull away. Tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not alone in this free fall. Instead of answering, Emily rose on her toes and kissed him. It was nothing like Cameron imagined, and he'd imagined it constantly. Her lips were soft but demanding, tasting of the coffee they'd shared that morning. When her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, something in his chest cracked open. This wasn't just attraction or admiration. This was the kind of connection that changed trajectories, that made a man reconsider everything he thought he wanted from life. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Emily whispered, I'm terrified of losing myself in this. In you. Then don't. Don't lose yourself. Become more yourself. Let me stand beside you while you do. Beside me? Not in front, leading the way? Beside you, he confirmed. Partners, in the kitchen and everywhere else. If you'll have me. Emily pulled back to study his face, searching for doubt or deception. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her because she smiled. Tentative, but genuine. Okay, let's do this. The restaurant, the partnership, all of it. Her smile turned wicked, but I'm designing my own menu. No interference from the critic. Wouldn't dream of it, Cameron grinned. Though I expect free meals. Partner privileges. Demanding already. But Emily was laughing now, the tension finally breaking. What have I gotten myself into? Something extraordinary, Cameron promised, and kissed her again to seal it. Outside, Chicago hummed with afternoon traffic. Inside Emily's small apartment, two people who'd spent years protecting themselves from exactly this kind of risk began planning a future neither had dared to imagine. The dish that started as a joke had indeed changed everything, but the recipe they were creating now had nothing to do with food, and everything to do with trust, vulnerability, and the courage to leap together into the unknown.
3 months later, Emily stood in the half-finished shell of what would become Ember, her restaurant. The space in Lincoln Park had good bones, exposed brick walls, high ceilings with original wooden beams, and large windows that flooded the interior with natural light. But right now, it looked like a construction zone. Tarps covered the floors, the kitchen was a maze of uninstalled equipment, and the dining area held nothing but potential. Cameron appeared in the doorway, 2 coffee cups in hand and concern etched on his face. You've been here since 5 a.m. The contractor said he found you measuring counter space in the dark. Couldn't sleep. Emily took the coffee gratefully, the warmth seeping into her perpetually cold hands. The opening is in 6 weeks, Cameron. 6 weeks, and we don't have a full menu finalized, the stove installation is delayed, and I still haven't found a reliable sous chef. She gestured at the chaos around them. What if I'm not ready? What if this whole thing is a massive mistake? It's not. Cameron set down his cup and pulled her close, his solid presence grounding her spiraling anxiety. You've tested every dish a dozen times. The investors are thrilled. The advance reservations are already filling up, and I haven't even published the preview piece yet.
That was another source of tension. Cameron had kept his word about writing a feature on Emily and Ember, but he'd been holding it back, waiting for the perfect moment. The delay made Emily feel like she was dangling from a cliff, waiting for his words to either lift her up or send her plummeting. What if people only come because of your article? The fear she'd been suppressing finally broke free. What if they're expecting Cameron Brooks's protege, not Emily Harper's vision? What if I can't separate my success from your influence? Is that what this is really about? You're still questioning whether you earned this. I don't know, Emily's voice cracked. Everything happened so fast. 3 months ago, I was a line cook nobody noticed. Now I'm opening my own restaurant with backing from investors you connected me with, in a space your friend leased to us at below market rate, with buzz generated by your reputation. How am I supposed to know what's mine and what's borrowed? The words hung between them like a blade. Cameron's expression shifted through hurt, frustration, and something darker. Disappointment. After everything, you still don't trust your own talent. Or worse, you don't trust me. That's not fair, isn't it? Cameron's voice rose. Months of careful patience finally fraying. I've watched you create dishes that made experienced chefs weep with envy. I've seen you command a kitchen, innovate under pressure, develop a culinary voice that's entirely your own, but none of that matters if you keep attributing your success to my involvement instead of your skill. Your involvement opened doors I couldn't have opened alone. That's just reality, Cameron. Without your connections, your credibility, my what? My validation? You think I'm propping you up? Emily, I've been terrified you'd realize you don't need me at all. That once Ember succeeds, you'll see I was just the stepping stone to get here. The admission stopped Emily cold. What? Cameron ran his hands through his hair, the polished critic facade cracking completely. You want to talk about fears? Here's mine. I'm in love with a woman who's about to become one of Chicago's most celebrated chefs, and I'm terrified that when she finally sees her own worth, she'll realize I'm just the critic who was lucky enough to taste her food first, that this entire relationship is built on a power imbalance that will eventually destroy us. You're in love with me? Emily's voice came out barely above a whisper. Desperately, completely. Cameron's laugh was bitter. Have been since that first night when you had the audacity to call your masterpiece a joke. But I've been so careful not to overshadow you, not to make this about me, that I've tied myself in knots trying to be supportive without being controlling. And apparently I've failed at that too. Silence filled the unfinished restaurant. Outside, traffic hummed on Halsted Street. A construction worker's radio played distantly. Emily's mind raced, trying to process the vulnerability Cameron had just laid bare. I'm scared, she finally said. Scared of failing, scared of succeeding, scared of losing myself and us. But Cameron, she stepped closer, taking his hands, I'm not scared of loving you. I already do. That's part of what terrifies me. If this fails, I don't just lose the restaurant, I lose you too. You won't lose me. Cameron's voice was rough with emotion. But Emily, you have to believe in yourself, not in my belief in you, in your own abilities. Because I can't carry that for you. No one can. I know. Tears burned behind Emily's eyes. I just don't know how to separate everything anymore. The professional and personal are so tangled. Then maybe they don't need to be separated. Cameron cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Maybe we stop trying to draw lines and just be. Partners who love each other and challenge each other and occasionally drive each other crazy. Can you do that? Emily wanted to say yes, wanted to surrender to the certainty in his voice. But doubt still gnawed at her. What if the restaurant fails? What if people hate my food and your reputation suffers because you backed me? Then we'll figure it out together. Cameron's thumb traced her cheekbone. But Emily, you need to decide right now, are you doing this for yourself or for me? Because if you're building Ember to prove something to me or to live up to some imagined expectation, it won't work. It has to be yours. The question cut to the core of everything. Emily closed her eyes, breathing through the fear, trying to find the truth beneath the anxiety. She thought about the dishes she'd created, each one a piece of herself, her memories, her vision. The deconstructed bouillabaisse that started everything had been hers before Cameron ever tasted it. Every innovation since then had come from her instincts, her willingness to experiment and fail and try again. It is mine, she said slowly, opening her eyes. Ember is mine, the menu, the vision, the risk, all mine. You helped open doors, but I'm the one who walked through them. I'm the one doing the work. Finally, Cameron's smile was equal parts relief and pride. Hold on to that, especially when things get hard. They're already hard, Emily pointed out, but found herself smiling back. They're about to get harder. Cameron pulled his phone from his pocket, pulling up an email. Marcus Chen just confirmed he's bringing a group from the James Beard Foundation to the soft opening next week. They want to preview Ember before the official launch. The Beard Foundation? Cameron, we're not ready. You are. His certainty was absolute. Trust me. More importantly, trust yourself. Emily took a shaky breath, looking around the chaotic space that would soon be her restaurant. Her dream, her risk, her chance to step out of the shadows and into the light. Okay, let's do this. Cameron kissed her, slow and deep, a promise and a celebration. When they broke apart, he whispered against her lips, I love you, Emily Harper. Not the chef, not the protege, you. The woman who jokes under pressure and creates magic in the kitchen and drives me absolutely insane with your stubbornness. I love you too, Emily admitted, the words feeling both terrifying and right. Even when you're being an impossible perfectionist who won't let me doubt myself for 5 minutes. Someone has to believe in you when you forget to believe in yourself, Cameron grinned. That's what partners do. As they stood in the unfinished restaurant, surrounded by construction debris and unfulfilled potential, Emily felt something shift inside her. The fear didn't disappear, it probably never would, but it no longer paralyzed her. She had built this. She would see it through. And whether Ember succeeded or failed, she would do it as herself, not as anyone's shadow or reflection. The recipe for her future was finally her own.
Opening night at Ember arrived with the weight of every dream and fear Emily had carried for the past 4 months. The restaurant glowed like a jewel box. Edison bulbs cast warm light across the exposed brick. The open kitchen gleamed with new equipment, and each table held a single white orchid in a copper vase. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers, and the air already smelled of roasted garlic, fresh herbs, and possibility. Emily stood in the kitchen, dressed in her chef's whites, with Chef Emily Harper embroidered over her heart, a gift from Cameron. Her hands trembled slightly as she reviewed the evening's reservations. 46 covers, including the James Beard representatives, 2 Tribune food writers, and several of Cameron's investor friends. No pressure whatsoever. "Chef, the amuse-bouche is ready for your approval," called Marcus, her newly hired sous chef, a culinary school graduate with quick hands and an eagerness that reminded Emily of herself just months ago. She examined the delicate spoons arranged on the pass, seared scallop with blood orange foam and microgreens, a bite-sized introduction to Ember's philosophy of bold flavors and unexpected combinations. Perfect. Beautiful work, Marcus. Let's hold them until we're 15 minutes out from first seating. Cameron appeared in the kitchen doorway, devastating in a charcoal suit, his critic's notebook conspicuously absent. Tonight, he was just here as her partner, he'd promised. No review, no professional assessment, just support. "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up, but also ready. Is that possible?" "Extremely possible." He crossed to her, ignoring the curious glances from her kitchen staff. "You're going to be extraordinary tonight. You already are." Before Emily could respond, Sophie, whom Emily had hired as general manager, poked her head into the kitchen. "First guests arriving. It's showtime, chef." The evening unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Emily commanded her kitchen with a confidence that surprised her, calling out orders, adjusting plates, tasting every dish before it left the pass. The menu she'd crafted told a story, appetizers that challenged expectations, mains that showcased technique and creativity, desserts that left diners sighing with satisfaction. From the kitchen, Emily could hear the dining room's energy, laughter, the clink of glasses, murmured appreciation. But she couldn't let herself get distracted. There were 46 plates to execute flawlessly, 46 chances to prove she belonged here. 2 hours into service, Sophie appeared with a strange expression. "Chef, there is someone asking to see you. Says it's urgent." Emily's stomach clenched. "Can it wait? We're in the middle of—" "It's Diane Morrison from the James Beard Foundation." The kitchen fell silent. Emily's hands stilled over the lamb she'd been plating. Diane Morrison, legendary chef, foundation board member, and notoriously difficult to impress. She wanted to see Emily now, mid-service? Go, Marcus urged. We've got the kitchen. Heart hammering, Emily wiped her hands and followed Sophie into the dining room. Diane Morrison sat at table 12, Cameron's table, engaged in what looked like an intense conversation with him. Both looked up as Emily approached. Chef Harper, I hope you don't mind the interruption. I wanted to compliment you personally before the evening concluded. That sea bass, with charred lemon and olive tapenade, where did you train? Emily's throat grew dry. I mostly self-taught, actually. I worked under Chef Marco Bellini at Aurelius for 3 years, but the techniques are instinctual, Diane finished, her eyes sharp. I can tell. There's a rawness to your cooking, an honesty that formal training sometimes polishes away. It's refreshing. She paused. I understand Cameron here has been mentoring you. The question felt loaded. Emily glanced at Cameron, who remained carefully neutral. This was her moment to define herself, to claim her work. Cameron introduced me to the investors who made Ember possible, Emily said carefully. He's been a sounding board and supporter. But the food, the vision, the menu, that's mine. Diane's smile was approving. Good answer. Too many young chefs hide behind their mentors' reputations. You seem determined to build your own. She stood, extending her hand. The foundation will be watching your career with great interest, Miss Harper, and I suspect we'll be seeing Ember on some very prestigious lists before long. After Diane returned to her table, Emily stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. Cameron rose, pulling her aside to a quiet corner. See? You did that, not me. You. She basically gave Ember her blessing, Emily whispered, awe and disbelief warring inside. Do you know what that means? It means you're exactly where you belong. Cameron's pride was palpable. Now get back in that kitchen and finish the strongest opening night Chicago has seen in years. The rest of service flew by in a blur of perfectly executed plates, exhausted satisfaction, and growing confidence. When the last dessert left the kitchen and the final table departed with promises to return, Emily's staff erupted in applause. She'd done it. They'd done it. Ember's opening night had been a triumph. Later, after the kitchen was cleaned and her staff had gone home, Emily and Cameron sat alone in the empty dining room, sharing a bottle of champagne and the remnants of the evening's tasting menu. I have something for you, Cameron said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. I was going to wait, but tonight feels like the right time. Emily opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a printout of Cameron's column, scheduled to run in the tomorrow's Tribune. The headline read, Ember, Chicago's most exciting new chef, announces her arrival. She scanned the review, her vision blurring with tears. Cameron had captured everything, the boldness of her flavors, the intimacy of the space, the clear vision behind every dish. But more than that, he had written about her journey without centering himself in it. The article was about Emily Harper, chef and visionary, who happened to have the support of people who believed in her talent. It's perfect, she whispered. Cameron, this is the truth, he finished. Every word, no exaggeration, no favoritism, just an honest assessment of an extraordinary talent. He took my hand. I'm proud of you, Emily. Not because you proved me right, but because you proved yourself right. Emily set down the article and climbed into Cameron's lap, framing his face with her hands. I couldn't have done this without you. I need you to know that. Not because you made it happen, but because you made me believe I could. That's all I ever wanted. Cameron's kiss was tender, tasting of champagne and promises. So what's next for Chicago's most exciting new chef? Emily laughed, giddy with exhaustion and triumph and love. More sleepless nights perfecting recipes, building Ember into something sustainable, maybe eventually expanding to a second location, and, somewhere in there, navigating a relationship with an impossible food critic who I'm hopelessly in love with. Sounds complicated, Cameron teased. Sounds perfect, Emily corrected. Outside, Chicago's night sky glittered with stars and city lights. Inside Ember, two people who'd found each other over a dish that was supposed to be a joke sat wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the physical manifestation of Emily's dreams. The restaurant would face challenges. Every new business did. Their relationship would have difficult moments, tests of trust and independence and partnership. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight was about celebrating the journey from that chaotic Friday night at Aurelius to this moment. Emily Harper, chef and owner of Ember, sitting with the man who'd seen her potential before she could see it for herself. The dish that changed everything had just been the beginning. The real recipe for success, for love, for a life lived boldly and authentically was still being written, one perfectly balanced flavor at a time. Emily raised her champagne glass to experiments that shouldn't work but somehow do. Cameron clinked his glass against hers, his eyes reflecting every ounce of love and admiration he felt. To the chef who taught me that the best dishes and the best relationships are worth the risk. They drank, kissed, and began planning tomorrow's menu together, partners in every sense of the word, building something neither could have created alone.